This event is being recorded. And hi, everyone. I'm Stelios, the CEO of the Tesseract Academy. The Tesseract Academy's mission is to educate entrepreneurs, decision makers, CEOs, managers in anything technology related, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, whether it's data science. And if you go on our website, you'll see there are many things going on. We have a lot of free content, free courses, but we also provide services in this area. In blockchain, we work primarily in the area of tokenomics. I personally happen to be one of the first researchers in the area since 2017. So if any of you are interested in discussing about this topic, feel free to shoot me an email. I also recently published my second book, which I'm more than happy to share with everyone who's going to shoot me an email. And today's guest is Marcel, who is an external partner of the Tesseract Academy. He's going to give a free webinar talking about blockchain and crypto and business applications of blockchain. And this is really a taster for the full session, which you can find here. I'm pasting the link of the full session in the chat. Make sure to join the event, get the early bird tickets while you still can. A note, the dates and the times are flexible. There's only a small number of places, so we'll arrange a time which is suitable for everyone with all the participants and Marcel, obviously. And yeah, we hope to see you there. So Marcel, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Let me quickly share my screen. Stelios, I don't have rights to share the screen yet.
Now you do.
Now I do. That is amazing. So why we are here today is to talk about blockchain and business processes, and especially use cases that are not focusing on the typical, let's say, typical crypto space where everything is full with NFTs and with coins and with airdrops and everything, but where this technology can make an impact on other business processes in other verticals. Short introduction about myself. I'm the CEO of a German blockchain consulting and development company called JadenX, located in Berlin. We have been working for quite some time with Tesseract to get some education, to make some courses and workshops on the stuff that I'm very knowledgeable about, and this is trusted business processes with blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. That's, by the way, also the title of my PhD thesis that I had a while ago and where I'm holding my PhD in. In the past couple of years before I started my own business, I worked across big industry in Germany for electrical companies, for Siemens, for Deutsche Telekom, in the innovation department over there, and also in different parts in academia, at TU Berlin, at Fraunhofer USA, in College Park, Maryland. That's where my time from Washington, D.C. comes from, that I just mentioned, the University of Lisbon, in typical areas of blockchain and AI. And what I'm really focused and passionate about is bringing real-world innovation projects to life. And when I say real world, what does real world mean, or what's real and what's not real? It's always up to discussion. But I have realized over the last couple of years that there's two worlds where blockchain is existing in. And the one world is the hype world, what I call it. So you see here Crypto Panic. That's a popular website if you are into crypto trading, if you want to make some money trading coins and getting into NFTs and seeing where the market is going. This is the one world that is existing there, where recently the news broke that FTX is in trouble and so on and so forth. This is, a world that originally came from the finance domain and came to typical people that are looking into investment and vehicles that are fully focused on finance applications. This world is existing. Some people are very turned off by this world because it's just a lot of noise and a lot of scams sometimes, but also a lot of good projects and a lot of very interesting innovations that are coming from there. And on the other hand, there's what I call the enterprise world of bigger corporates or entrepreneurs that have been trying to get into the technology for their existing business for quite some time. which do not necessarily come from the finance domain and do not really talk about all these tokens and the hype that is in in the blockchain community there. So typical enterprise users that have enterprise software and that leverage the technology to overcome problems in their business processes. You can put very nice pictures to each of these words, but when I want you to imagine the hyper, this somebody who is looking on the course of Bitcoin that you see here on the left side, and you see how over the last couple of years that has been quite an up and down kind of trend, where you have certain circles where this whole industry is living in. And then you have the enterprise world that is not really tied to any of these trends because it uses the technology and it's not tied to any sort of speculation or any kind of market movements because it uses the technology to overcome other problems that are outside of the finance sector. 90% of government organizations plan to invest into blockchain technologies, according to a survey that Bitcoin Manager at some point in time in the last year did, and over 3/4 of respondents from a survey in the consumer products and manufacturing industry stated that their company was either in experimentation phases or into the production phase of blockchain development. And this market, or what we call the enterprise blockchain market, is projected to be growing in quite a steady pace until the next years and even further. And you see that this is a steady growth, and that it's not really tied to any kind of market cycles or hype cycles that you have in what I call the hype world. And this enterprise world is what we're looking today in. And if you are a business leader, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a manager at a bigger company, you want to have like a mindset, a framework of understanding if you can put real value out of this disruptive technology. And therefore, you need to basically understand when you really need a blockchain, on a very abstract level, what a blockchain does. Not talking about tokens or coins or cryptocurrency, but what a blockchain really does, and how you get blockchain projects in the enterprise sector up and running, create and operate them in the long term. And for that very first thing about when you need a blockchain, there is a very long, monstrous sentence that I will walk you through at the moment. So you need a blockchain every time when you have two or more businesses with limited trust to each other that have to work together in a joint process and agree on certain pieces of information where no single party is control of this information. It's a very academic and very abstract kind of thing, but if you wanted to put it in one sentence, that would be the sentence. Let me give you an example from supply chain management that is actually a very good use case that is used very often for blockchain. So think about you have Alice and Bob. Alice is a pharmaceutical producer located in Berlin in Germany, who is creating let's say cancer medicine. Yeah? Bob is her customer, maybe a pharmacy or a patient in Genoa in Italy, and they are both two independent organizations, right? They are one company in Berlin, they are one company in Italy, and they want to ship the products of Alice to Bob in Italy. And to ship these products, they have to involve three more organizations in their process. So the German national carrier for post is called Deutsche Post, has that little yellow sign, and they are only operating within Germany. So Alice is naturally giving them her package and says, okay, here is my cancer medicine. It's important that you keep it cold. please bring it to Bob in one piece. Look that it doesn't get too warm, because otherwise you cannot use it anymore. Deutsche Post says, sure thing. They only operate within Germany, so they drive it with their truck to the airport, where they hand over the package to DHL. And DHL is therefore air freight, is taking the package over. Deutsche Post saying, okay, here's this package. Just be careful, because Alice wants it to be cold. Also look when you are flying with your airplane that it doesn't get warmer than 20 degrees, because otherwise it would be a shame. DHL says, yeah, sure, no problem. We will do that, loads it in their airplane and flies it to Italy, or in this case to Switzerland, and from there DHL is handing it over to Poste Italiane, the post office of Italy, handing over the package to Bob. Yeah? This is what we call a collaborative process, because we have 3 logistics companies and 2, the sender and the receiver, who work in a joint process together and have the goal of getting a package from A to B. But in this process, there's quite a lot that can go wrong. For example, if it is summer in Italy, Poste Italiane probably has a hard time keeping something under 20 degrees. And when then Bob gets his package and he has it in a hand and you see, okay, this stuff is now already at 30 degrees, or the packaging is broken, who of these companies is now responsible? And that's the information in this joint process that we need to agree on. So who was responsible when the package was dropped, lost, or damaged? In this case, it also doesn't make sense to have a single party in control of tracking that all, because if you give it to Deutsche Post will of course say, yeah, it was not us, and they would never say it was us, because if there's others to blame, and Deutsche Post doesn't have to repair reparations. And that's exactly the setup we have. A collaborative business process where these parties only trust each other limitedly, but they need to agree on an important piece of information. And if you have a setup like this, then it's always usually a good indicator that a blockchain could help you. And when you have identified this situation, it's like, okay, a blockchain could generally help you in the process. You have to understand how a blockchain helps you and what it exactly does. So what does a blockchain? Well, it creates a tamper-proof shared audit trail of interactions between different parties and rules how you can modify this information. These rules can be enforced through something that we call a smart contract, and the shared audit trail is basically a list of transactions to the blockchain that has been maintained, where you can go back in time and see what has been happening. And for example, here I posted one of these audit trails, how they could look. For example, Deutsche Post handed over the package to DHL is one item in our item trail. DHL handed over the parcel to Poste Italiane is another item, and Poste Italiane dropped it off at the final destination. And what we do with blockchain, with cryptography, with our consensus mechanism, may it be proof of work or proof of stake, or whatever you're using in this setup, is that when there is something written in on the blockchain, you can never revert what was in there, and you can never say what was there never happened, unless you convince all the people who are using this blockchain and maintaining it to erase the mistake from the existing. And that's practically, depending on how you create your system, impossible. And that's really the novelty that this blockchain lets you do. You can create this audit trail, and you have a timestamp to every event that has happened in this audit trail. And you can, with smart contracts, enforce rule. For example, handing over is only possible if someone signs that he took over your package. Depending on which exact use case you are in, that might be quite a little bit different. And in the end, when you know, okay, when do you need a blockchain, what a blockchain does, you want to understand how do you get a blockchain up and running and how to operate. And therefore, it's important to understand that the blockchain is maintained by a consortium of different parties that validate transactions and maintain in blocks, the literal blocks of the chain, so and make sure that nobody is breaking the rules. This is something very important. I got asked for people who have never heard about blockchain, if blockchain is, you know, a software like SAP that you can just purchase from a certain vendor, they take care of everything. Yes, you can, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. It really is about a consortium that is managing a set of independent nodes, that is validating transactions and is making sure in a consensus mechanism that nobody is breaking rules and nobody is cheating. And therefore, it's important, you know, whether you are setting up your own blockchain network or you're using an existing blockchain network that is public, like Ethereum, to do so. It's important that you see how many validators are, what are their incentives, and can they conspire to cheat a system. And creating these kind of setups is quite interesting and challenging, and really depends on the use case that you want to do. But in the end, there's no centralized party that says this is what happened and that didn't happen. But it's a set of validators that coordinate and control. And that's basically the basics that everybody that, you know, wants to think about using blockchain, in my opinion, needs to understand. So if you are with your business in a situation where you think, okay, all of this somewhat making sense to me and I would like to explore it, how can you build actually this application? And I always advocate for a process-driven development process, where you look on what is your current process and where do you have trust issues. You don't start with tokens or NFTs or with smart contracts or with whatever. You start in your domain where you want to go and where you want to look where the trust issues that you have are, where somebody could cheat, and where there's the setup that makes a blockchain interesting. And then in the second step, we have a toolkit of what I call trust patterns with blockchain that help you to mitigate these issues. And you can classify them, you can look where's your process, and the challenging part on engineering these kind of applications is looking which pattern can you apply where, and how to create to make the best system in terms of governance for your blockchain. And in the end, you have the actual implementation of the system with the smart contracts, with off-chain databases, with integrating into existing systems, with APIs, with wallets, with everything that goes that belongs behind the scenes. But what I really advocate for is look, what is the process where you have a problem, and then use the technology to mitigate it. Do not do the other way around. Say, I have here a blockchain and I'm trying to force it now on something. We look, where's the problem? Look how a blockchain can help and make this connection. And a little bit of a teaser, what we usually do in our other seminars, where people who are interested in using blockchain are getting a little more of a hands-on approach, is we are looking into these trust patterns. So there's a couple of different trust patterns that you can use in blockchain applications, and analyze how you can use them in your applications to overcome your issues. So I'm just very shortly teasing them here. The first one is what I call the tamper-proof hash storage, where you basically store a timestamped hash on chain of arbitrary data to prove that this data where you created the hash of has not changed in the meantime. Have to understand a little bit about cryptography, not too much, but seeing that once you create a hash, it is easy to create a hash from a piece of data. But it's very hard to create the data back from a hash, or right now it is practically impossible. And that way you can always show lineage, and with the timestamp property you can always show integrity. And you can also log events in your process with a signature where somebody is attesting, yes, this is what's happened, and I'm vouching for that right now. You can also put certain programming logic, these rules that I've been talking about in the business process, in a smart contract. We call this then a smart contract activity. And lastly, you can also, on a very low level, use the whole blockchain as basically your combined root of trust for your business process. There's more patterns that you can use that are more high level for certain, reputation systems, for example, put them into your business process, and other things that you can do. But these are the general trust patterns that we cultivated over the time, and we used in a lot of different client projects. And when I talk about different projects, there is many different application domains. I have, with my company, worked in many of them. Finance, of course, the obvious, with cryptocurrencies, with NFTs, and with tokens. Supply chain, just gave you an example. This example that I gave you is actually in a project that I've been working on in real life. In energy trading, decentralized energy systems, grids, also projects where I've been very deeply involved in the last couple of years, where you have interesting problems of, basically needing an accounting system for what energy goes when and where. In mobility, there's also application use cases for, small mobility sharing applications, and of course everything where you have in any kind of domain a governance process with signatures, with workflows that need to be orchestrated. And these are just, a sample of the applications that are the most prominent. But there is tons of other more industries that can benefit from this technology. In the end, it's the question of where to go from here. We did this webinar a little bit to gather some interest, dissipate a little bit of knowledge to you. And if you want to get deeper, we offer deeper workshops. Next time, September is, I think, outdated. I think it's next time, it's in December sometime. We offer also personalized consulting and solution architecture and end-to-end solution development. So if you want to have specific talks about, or if you could use this technology to overcome certain things, we are more than happy to sit together with you. Look first on the consulting level, and if you need someone to implement, we also have our own developers that can do and can go into these projects. And that's basically my very short overview. I hope you all got something from it, learned something from it. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. You can either scan the QR code, send me an email, or just look me up on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to talk to any of you. And I think, Stianis, we have now a couple of minutes for questions, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think we already have one question from Ayud.
Good. Then hit me, please.
I think he wrote this in the chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can ask in person as well. Yeah, so my question is, in the example you gave about the supply chain.
Yes.
How would the different, so first question is, who would run the nodes? Like, who would be the validators in this case? And how would they actually validate, the different events that need trust? Because in this example, the event is physical, right? Whether or not the package is damaged, would that not require like physical inspection by the validators?
Exactly. So we have two different levels here. When I talk about validators, I talk about, technical validators that validate everything that is happening on the blockchain is being correct. And the question, this piece of data with the supply chain, you say that very correctly. That's in the real world, right? That's information that someone dropped the parcel, it got to Rome, or someone made a handover, is in the real world, and it has to be somehow being related to the blockchain or relate on the blockchain. And this is generally what we call the Oracle problem. Yeah? So getting information from a different system or the real world into that blockchain. And you have to create the system very carefully to do that. The validators on the node level are not validating that what in the real world happened actually happened. I can tell you that right away. They can only validate that when somebody said, okay, I dropped the parcel or you dropped the parcel, that later you cannot revert your answer and say, no, that never happened. Yeah? That's what the validators are doing. In the end, you have to create a process where someone is putting in that information, and you have to somewhat trust the information that the input is there, but you don't have to trust that it stays integrity preserved, because that's what the validators are doing. In that very example of the supply chain, we used IoT sensors, Jude, to put them into the package. They are monitoring the temperature, and whenever the temperature was over 20 degrees, these IoT devices, they had an LTE CAD-M module on them, were sending a transaction directly from the device to the blockchain, saying, okay, in this supply chain instance, there was a violation of the 20 degrees. It is now today 7 p.m. and it got to 22 degrees. And then the IoT device is the one putting that in. So you don't have to trust, in that case, a human, but you have to look into the IoT device, and of course also trust the IoT device that you have there. And depending on your setup and who is owning the IoT device, you may or may not trust them. But in that case with Post Italiane, an independent organization was doing that. Yeah? Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thanks very much. And it's very interesting how you use IoT devices to measure temperature, and that removes another layer of trust. That you don't have to trust a human is inputting the data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks.
It doesn't remove trust completely, but it just shifts it closer to the edge.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you talk about how the data is stored? Is a blockchain stored in a single place, or is it stored in multiple places for each node? And also, kind of, I guess a related question is, how do you interrogate the blockchain? If you want to see where something went wrong, how is that done?
Yeah. That is a very good question. So the initial setup of how blockchains work, how Bitcoin works, is that every validator, in Bitcoin, the miner, owns the full history of all transactions and of all data in these transactions that has ever been made. So that you can, right now, if you are, for example, a Bitcoin validator, you can, or a Bitcoin miner, sorry, if you're a Bitcoin miner, then you can see all transactions that have been made since 2009, when the very first Bitcoin was made. And you can, link all these transactions, see that no one was spending money that they do not have, and look into that. Which is, of course, very data space intensive, right? It's this database that you have then of your transactions will take, the bigger it gets, it always gets bigger. So that's why people are coming up with different solutions to that big data problem. First solution is to not put all your data on the blockchain, but only to put a hash of your data on the blockchain. We talked about cryptographic hash functions before. Think about getting a piece of data that is that big, putting it in a hash that is that small, and only putting that hash on the blockchain. The cryptographic hash is created in a way that you can always validate deterministically when you have the data that the hash belongs to the data. And every time you even change a single piece of the data, the hash will be completely different. That's one approach that we have. Then we have other approaches where you have not a public blockchain, but where you have a consortium blockchain, where you have, for example, this. Let's take this this post use case where I had each of these post companies having a full history of the transactions, but nothing else is happening in this network than handovers from A to B and validations of service level agreements. Combining data from transactions that you have on chain that is replicated across all nodes with data that you only have in full with certain nodes is then the next approach. So yeah, there's different ways on how you can do it. It depends really on your use case, what you're looking for. Does it answer your question, James?
I think so, but in the second example where you've got the consortium blockchain, is it the case that every validator has all the data stored on a database somewhere, or is there a central point they can all interrogate?
So the idea is that every validator has data stored because they don't want to rely on others, but it depends on how you structure it in the very end. There is, for example, in enterprise blockchains that build on top of Ethereum, that's one that was initially created by JP Morgan called Quorum. You can build something that you call private smart contracts, where only certain pieces of certain smart contracts are visible to certain people in this consortium, so that you don't have to share your data with everybody on this world, or everybody in this consortium. Yeah, that's one of the approaches that's there.
I see. Thank you.
Cool. Good. More questions. Nikita, I saw you asked, what blockchains do you use? Blockchains that in my company are being used are mostly based on Ethereum. So the Ethereum is an open source stack it's an open source blockchain framework that you can use to build your own blockchains, or go to Ethereum main chain or any of these other side chains that you have. And there's a lot of other frameworks that build on top of Ethereum. Quorum is one of them, but there's other layer 2 solutions to make scalability a bit better. But I generally I'm very much into the Ethereum ecosystem.
I see. Got it. Thank you. I have one more question in terms of the adoption, because in my experience, I feel like, it's happening, but it's taking some time. So what do you see? And, can you tell us a little bit more about like how many use cases that you have worked with, and how big is your team right now?
My team right now has about 12 people, so I'm quite a small team. But my target is we are really supplying this expertise on an expert level and not on a generic.
So more like level. Consulting level.
Exactly. I have programmers. I'm working together with freelancers if there's the need to bring that up. In my experience, in the first hype cycle of 2017. Where the enterprise world got infected by the hype of the hype world, there were quite a lot of industries that were doing proof of concepts, and a lot of these proof of concepts failed because people didn't have the knowledge. It was too new, or they didn't understand what it really does for their business apart from just following the hype. Then there was the next wave, that matured over a certain time. You had a lot of industry-based initiatives coming out in supply chain management. There's, for example, a big industry initiative for bills of lading that's there. In energy management, there is non-profit organizations that do energy trading. Where there was this phase where these kind of bigger industry consortia and alliances came together to explore this technology. And right now we are in this phase where we get a little bit to the next step from there to really use them in productive applications on a scalable way. And this is, in my opinion, the state where we are right now in. Blockchain is nothing that is on a development level that accessible yet, that just anybody can build blockchain stuff. But on the tooling level, on getting something into production, we are right now at a good point in time to get into that.
Great to hear. Yes, I do have a blockchain development team. We have over 100 people, but more on the crypto startup side than the enterprise side. And I've also been trying to explore the enterprise blockchain side of it. It's just not so much going on yet.
Sounds good. Feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. Maybe we can talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Good. So, Stylianos, do we have any other more questions in the room?
I don't think we have. No.
Okay.
So if that was all, then a round of applause for Marcel. As I mentioned, there's going to be a full workshop. Here's the link. And also make sure to check out our website. If you have any questions, just drop us an email to this email address. There are more events coming up this year, which, I mean, there's like a month and a half left, and then many more in the next year. We're also planning to launch a certificate in blockchain for executives. Make sure to check out our website to learn more about this. And we hope to see you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.